compass centers, adornments that echo anchors pulled from the seafloor. Water does not thrash against him, it parts. When he stands in waist-high surf, the waves bend around his frames. The tide slows in recognition. The current listens. His crown rises like coral and plume, red and gold, cutting against the ocean air. Not vanity, but rank. Not decoration, but office. He governs sea salt. He governs ships. He governs routes, and routes shape destiny. The sea has been commerce, invasion, escape, exile, return. It has carried explorers and conquerors, traders and captives, dreamers and displaced. Ogway presides over every crossing. He is the keeper of the passage, the witness of migration, the silent authority over the line between homeland and horizon. For the African diaspora, the Atlantic is not just geography, it is archive, it is grave, it is womb, it is rupture and survival intertwined. Millions crossed unwillingly, millions never saw land again, millions endured and carried memory forward. Within voodoo cosmology, the sea is threshold, a place where worlds meet and spirits travel. Offerings to Ogway are set afloat in small boats and released into the open water. They are not placed on altars inside walls. They are entrusted to distance. If the sea returns the offering, it was refused. If it carries it outward, it was accepted. Even in ritual, the message is clear. The ocean decides. Ogway becomes more than a maritime spirit. He becomes the guardian of the scattered, protector of those who crossed and survived, keeper of those who did not. The Atlantic is not silent under his command, it remembers. Storms rise, and some say it is random weather. Others whisper that the sea corrects itself, that it refutes certain weights, that it rejects certain chains. Ogway does not rage without purpose. He commands. In ceremony, when he mounts a devotee, the posture changes. The body straightens. Movements become precise, controlled, naval. This is dignity in the bearing, authority in the gesture. He may salute, he may demand water. He may move as though standing on the deck of a ship no one else can see. His authority is not theatrical, it is discipline. He is often paired with La Sirene, the mermaid of depth and longing. If she is the song that draws you to the sea, he is the structure that governs its currents. If she is seduction and emotion, he is sovereignty and protection. Together they embody the emotional and commanding halves of the sea, call and command, longing and law. Ogway's roots reach beyond the Caribbean. His essence echoes older West and Central African water traditions, river spirits, deep water guardians, forces of crossing and return. He carries ancestral continuity across oceans. Water was humanity's first mirror, its first road, its first boundary. Ogway stands within that paradox. He is not the wave that crashes for spectacle, he is the tide that endures. For a people dispersed by water, he represents strength without cruelty, authority without oppression, protection without noise. He does not shout across the sea. He stands within it, steady, unmovable, commanding routes no empire could fully control. The ocean still moves, ships still cross, and beneath every horizon line, the admiral watches. Ogway, Admiral of the Living Sea. Stand at the edge of the Atlantic long enough and you begin to understand something. The ocean is not empty. It moves with intention. It breathes with memory. It carries names that history tried to erase. Every tide pulls at something deeper than the shore. Within that vastness stands Ogway. He is not the chaos of crashing waves, nor the reckless fury of the storm. He is the discipline within the tide, the command inside emotion, the authority that charts the horizon. Ogway is admiral. His presence is not loud, but it is undeniable. His skin is imagined in deep maritime blue, not decorative sky blue, but the heavy blue found beneath the surface where the light begins to disappear. blue that borders on black, blue that holds secrets. Against the depth, gold rests easy, chains like navigational lines, medallions like compass centers, adornments that echo anchors pulled from the seafloor. Water does not thrash against him, it parts. When he stands in waist-high surf, the waves bend around his frames. The tide slows in recognition. The current listens. His crown rises like coral and plume, red and gold cutting against the ocean air. Not vanity, but rank. Not decoration, but office. He governs sea salt. He governs ships. He governs routes, and routes shape destiny. The sea has been commerce, invasion, escape, exile, return. It has carried explorers and conquerors, traders and captives, dreamers and displaced. Ogwait presides over every crossing. He is the keeper of the passage, the witness of migration, the silent authority over the line between homeland and horizon. For the African diaspora, the Atlantic is not just geography, it is archive, it is grave, it is womb, it is rupture and survival intertwined. Millions crossed unwillingly, millions never saw land again, millions endured and carried memory forward. Within voodoo cosmology, the sea is threshold, a place where worlds meet and spirits travel. Offerings to Ogway are set afloat in small boats and released into the open water. They are not placed on altars inside walls. They are entrusted to distance. If the sea returns the offering, it was refused. If it carries it outward, it was accepted. Even in ritual, the message is clear. The ocean decides. Ogway becomes more than a maritime spirit. He becomes the guardian of the scattered, protector of those who crossed and survived, keeper of those who did not. The Atlantic is not silent under his command, it remembers. Storms rise, and some say it is random weather. Others whisper that the sea corrects itself, that it refutes certain weights, that it rejects certain chains. Ogway does not rage without purpose. He commands. In ceremony, when he mounts a devotee, the posture changes. The body straightens. Movements become precise, controlled, naval. This is dignity in the bearing, authority in the gesture. He may salute, he may demand water. He may move as though standing on the deck of a ship no one else can see. His authority is not theatrical, it is discipline. He is often paired with La Sarine, the mermaid of depth and longing. If she is the song that draws you to the sea, he is the structure that governs its currents. If she is seduction and emotion, he is sovereignty and protection. Together they embody the emotional and commanding halves of the sea, call and command, longing and law. Ogway's roots reach beyond the Caribbean. His essence echoes older West and Central African water traditions, river spirits, deep water guardians, forces of crossing and return. He carries ancestral continuity across oceans. Water was humanity's first mirror, its first road, its first boundary. Ogway stands within that paradox. He is not the wave that crashes for spectacle, he is the tide that endures. For a people dispersed by water, he represents strength without cruelty, authority without oppression, protection without noise. He does not shout across the sea. He stands within it, steady, unmovable, commanding routes no empire could fully control. The ocean still moves, ships still cross, and beneath every horizon line, the admiral watches. Akasha of Kemet, the queen who did not die. Now this story takes place in ancient Kemet, in an age before history had hardened to dates. An age where empires were still learning what they were, learning their power. Kemet was rising, pulling itself away from the older, darker traditions, blood rites, ancestral consumption, magic fed by death rather than memory. At the heart of this transformation stood a woman from beyond its borders, Akasha. She was not born of Kemet. She came from the lands of Sumer, Mesopotamia, where the first cities were built, where queens were not ornaments but in institutions themselves. When she was wed to Enkil, the king of Kemet, the marriage was political, but the power she brought was real. Akasha did not rule from behind the throne. She was the throne's spine. Known as the Queen of Beauty and Order, Akasha was spoken of as a devastating beauty, not a fragile beauty, not a decorative beauty, but a regal beauty. Her skin was dark and luminous, kissed by the sun of the south. Her body bore the symmetry of deliberate design. Her hair was worn in intricate braids, woven with gold, beads, and ritual markings, each braid a language of status, lineage, and intent. When she walked, people noticed. When she spoke, people listened. And when she ruled, things changed. Under Akasha and Enkil, Kemet began to cleanse itself. Cannibalism was outlawed. Blood sorcery was dismantled. The old shadow priesthoods were dragged into the light. And civilization makes enemies along its way. Enter the Witch Sisters. Among those enemies were two ancient sisters, Maharet and Makari. Now their mother had been a very powerful witch, one of the old order, and when she died, the sisters followed their ancestral rites, preparing to consume her body, her brain, her flesh, in order to absorb her knowledge and power. To them, this was sacred. This was lineage. To Akasha, this was barbarism, and this was a crime. They were arrested, not gently, and they were beaten, dragged before the queen. And Akasha did not show them mercy. She humiliated them publicly. She had them punished, scarred, and cast down, not as witches, but simply as criminals themselves. Now, this was not cruelty. This was policy, and the sisters never forgave her for that. The summoning of Amil. Now, Maharet and Makari retreated into exile, into the old places where these new laws did not reach them. And there, in rage and humiliation, they summoned Amil. Not a god, not a demon in the Christian sense, a blood spirit, ancient, feral, drawn to death, thriving in the cracks between life and decay. They did not ask Amil to kill Akasha. They asked him to torment her, to haunt her days, to fracture her sleep, to make her doubt her own mind. And Amil agreed. And the harassment began. Akasha began to suffer. Shadows moved when they shouldn't. Voices whispered without mouths. Objects shifted. Blood dreams plagued her sleep. And she knew what this was. An attempt at possession. A fight for her soul. And she resisted it. She resisted the spirit with her will alone, refusing to allow it to claim her. But Amil was ancient, powerful, and patient. And so he lingered. He fed on his proximity to her. The waiting was his gift. And then came the assassination. Again, civilization makes many enemies, and she had her share. And one day came the blades. An assassination attempt, political, coordinated, inevitable. Enkil was struck first. Akasha was then stabbed. As her blood spilled onto the stone, her body began to fail, and thus her soul rose. And that is the moment that everything broke. As Akasha crossed the threshold of death, Amil followed her, and this spirit latched onto her departing soul, not out of love, not out of design, but out of instinct, that of a predator. And when Akasha's soul tried to leave her body, Amil pulled it back in. They fell together, the spirit and the queen, back into the flesh. Her heart restarted, her wounds sealed, her blood changed, and Akasha awoke. Not alive, not dead, but bound. the first vampire queen. She arose as something new. Her senses shattered their limits. Her hunger was no longer her own. Her blood burned with foreign will. A meal was now fused to her, feeding through her, whispering through instinct, bound permanently for all time. Akasha had not chosen immortality. She had simply been denied death. The turning of Enkill. Enkill lay there dying, and Akasha refused to lose him, so she fed him her blood. And then Enkill died. And then horrifically, he rose. And in that moment, vampirism was born, not from ambition, but from love and refusal to endure loss. The judgment on the witches. Akasha and Enkill hunted the sisters, sparing no expense. Maharet was found, and she was spared, but mutilated. Her eyes were destroyed, and she was cast into an endless exile. Makari was driven mad, sent wandering, carrying the seed of legacy in her, her survival ensuring the truth would never fully die. The old magic was not destroyed, but it was scattered. The martyrdom. Akasha did not seek godhood. She paid for reform with her eternity. She paid for civilization itself with her soul. She became the mother of monsters against her will, bound forever to a parasite born of ancient cruelty and modern resistance. She was not evil by origin. She is what happens when a woman stands between the old world and the future demands blood. The birth and return of the sun goddess, Amaterasu. Now this story comes from the ancient Japanese chronicles, the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoni. And at the center of the story is the sun goddess, Amaterasu, the brilliant ruler of heaven whose light sustains the world. But this is not only the myth of the birth of the sun, it's about what happens when the sun disappears. Now, long ago, at the beginning of the world, the creator, Izanagi, returned from the land of the dead. To cleanse himself of pollutions of death, he entered a sacred forest and began to purify his body. As he washed his face, 3 divine children were born. From his left eye emerged Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun. From his right eye emerged Tsukuyomi, the god of the moon. And from his nose came the storm god Susanoo. Izanagi gave Amaterasu the biggest responsibility and the greatest honor. He placed her in charge of the heavenly realm, the shining kingdom of the gods. Her light illuminated both heaven and earth. But her brother Susanoo was wild and destructive. Instead of ruling the seas peacefully, he rampaged through the heavens. He destroyed the sacred rice fields, he uprooted divine trees, he defiled the halls of the god. Finally, he committed a truly terrible act. He threw the flayed body of a horse through the roof of Amaterasu's weaving hall. The divine maidens working there all panicked. One of them died in the chaos. Amaterasu was horrified. In grief and rage, she withdrew from the world and sealed herself inside a sacred cave known as Ama-no-Iwato. The moment Amaterasu hid herself, the world fell into darkness. Without the sun, crops began to fail. Cold winds swept across the land. Spirits of chaos wandered freely. The gods feared that if the sun never returned, the world itself might collapse into darkness. So the divine beings gathered outside the cave to devise a plan. Among the assembled gods was a joyful and mischievous goddess named Amano Uzumi. She stepped forward with the strange idea. Uzumi overturned a wooden tub and began to dance wildly on top of it. Her movements were exaggerated and comical. She stamped her feet, she laughed loudly, she even danced in ways so ridiculous that the gods burst into roaring laughter. Inside the cave, Amaterasu heard the noise. Curious, she called out, "Why are you celebrating while the world lies in darkness?" The gods replied, "We celebrate because a goddess even greater than yourself has appeared." Amaterasu grew curious. Slowly, she opened the stone door of the cave just enough to peek out. Outside the cave, the gods had placed a sacred member, known as the Ayata no Kami. When Amaterasu looked out, she saw a brilliant figure shining before her. She stepped forward in amazement. Who was this radiant being? It was her own reflection. As she moved closer, the powerful god Aminotagaro leaped forward and pulled the cave door open. In that moment, the sunlight burst across the heaven and over the earth once again. Darkness was gone, and the sun had returned. The meaning of the story. Now, this story carries deep symbolism. First, it shows that light can withdraw when chaos and disrespect dominate the world. Second, the gods restore balance not through violence, but through creativity, laughter, and cooperation. Finally, the mirror itself represents self-recognition. Amaterasu returns to the world when she sees her own divine light reflected back at her. The myth of Anansi and death. Now, this story comes from the Akan peoples of West Africa, where stories are not merely entertainment, but inheritance, passed from voice to voice, memory to memory, as carefully as names and bloodlines. Now, in this story, it speaks of the beginning, when the world was still simple and its rules had not yet hardened. And there was Anansi, the trickster, who was gifted by knowing many things. He knew how to listen when others spoke too much. He knew how to wait when others rushed forward blindly. He knew how to take a small advantage and turn it into a lasting gain. And this is why he survived. Anansi was not the strongest. He was not the bravest. He did not rule through force or command, but he was clever. And in a world shaped by consequence, cleverness carried weight. He was known by many other names, most notably the Spider. And oftentimes he appeared as a spider, other times as a man, often both at once. He moves between forms as easily as thought between ideas, because he represents the mind itself at work. He is the keeper of stories, the bringer of knowledge, the reminder that intelligence is a form of power. And through Anansi, wisdom is passed not through strength, but through attention. He was a trickster, but never a fool. A survivor, not a coward. Where others confront obstacles directly, Anansi goes around them. While others accept fate, Anansi tests it, gently, patiently, with curiosity sharpened into strategy. And so, in a world that listens to the clever, Anansi endures. The approach of death. Death did not arrive suddenly. It never does. Among the Akan, death is not a shout in the dark, but a quiet shift in the rhythm of living. It moves softly, announced not by noise, but by patterns, by things going slightly out of step. It appeared in the smallest ways, a stiffness in the joints that did not leave with rest, a weariness that lingered longer than it once had, a pause in the breath where there had never been one before. Time itself seemed to change. Days no longer stretched forward with the same generosity. The future felt closer, heavier, as if it had begun to lean inward. Death had entered the space, not as an intruder, but as a presence. And Anansi noticed, as he always did. He watched the signs without fear. He felt the shift without panic. Where others would have prayed or pleaded, Anansi observed. He was measured, he was calculated. Because to Anansi, this too looked like the problem with a shape. And if a thing had a shape, it could be understood. And if it could be understood, Anansi believed it could be solved. The trap. Anansi prepared carefully, not in haste and not in fear. He wove a web unlike any he had made before, not for insects, not for prey, but for possibility. Each strand was laid out with intention, measured against its silent self. Each knot was reinforced, not by strength, but with patience. This was not a hunter's web. It was a question cast into the shape of a trap. The web shivered faintly in the light, not because it was visible, but because it disturbed something deeper. It caught light the way that thought catches doubt, invisible to all but the most attentive eye. And it waited, already complete, already listening. When death came, it came as it always does, silent, patient, unquestioned. No warning preceded it, no force accompanied it. Death stepped forward, unaware that this space had already been altered, that the pattern it relied on had been interpreted. And then the web closed. Not violently, not suddenly. It gathered death in the way that a pause gathers breath. And for the first time, death was held. Not wounded, not threatened, just stopped. And the world hesitated. Breath lingered where it should have passed. Moments stretched thin, as if time itself were waiting for instruction. The final step, the one that always came, failed to arrive. The universe did not break. Goddess who did not accept drought. In the late Bronze Age city of Ugarit, along the coast of what is now Syria, clay tablets are pressed with cuneiform signs that preserve one of the oldest storm myths in recorded history. Among those tablets was a story of Baal, the storm god, and within that story stands a figure who does not wait quietly for events to unfold. Her name is Anet. Now, Baal was not merely a god of thunder in this narrative. He represents rain, fertility, agricultural survival. In a region dependent on seasonal storms, Baal's vitality determines whether crops grow or fail. When Baal rises, the land flourishes. When Baal falls, droughts threaten everything. The Baal cycle describes a cosmic conflict. Baal clashes with Yam, the sea. Later, he confronts Mot, the god of death and sterility. These are not abstract enemies. Yam represents chaotic waters. Mot represents drought, dryness, the swallowing stiffness of death. And at one point in the narrative, Baal is defeated. Now, the text becomes fragmentary, but the message is clear. The storm god disappears. The rains cease. The agricultural cycle halts. And for a Bronze Age society, this is not symbolic drama. This is catastrophe. And this is where Anat enters with force. Anat is often described as Baal's sister. In some traditions, she is also his ally or consort. But the text makes one thing unmistakable. She is not subordinate. She is fierce, independent, emotionally intense. When Baal falls, Anat does not collapse into mourning. She reacts. The Ugaritic texts describe her rage in striking terms. She seeks out those who are responsible. She seizes enemies. She attacks without hesitation. The language is violent. She grabs warriors. She splits them. She scatters bodies. One passage describes her wading knee-deep in blood. Another describes her rejoicing in slaughter. This detail is uncomfortable for modern ears, but it tells us something important. In this world, violence carried out in defense of cosmic order is not shameful. It's necessary. Anat does not hesitate because hesitation would mean drought continues. She does not negotiate because negotiation does not bring rain. And myth does not portray her as irrational. It portrays her as decisive. The slaughter imagery is vivid, almost ritualistic. The battlefield becomes a space of sacred correction. Blood is not randomly cruel, it's restoration through force, through tribal theology. Anat's loyalty to Baal is absolute. When he is threatened, she becomes the weapon. But her most significant confrontation is not merely with human entities, is not merely with human enemies. It is with Mot. Mot is not simply a rival deity. Mot represents death itself, sterility, dry earth, the swallowing void that ends growth. So when Baal descends into the realm of Mot, drought grips the land. Anat searches for him. Now, the text describe her journey into grief, but grief does not paralyze her. She confronts Mot directly. The fragment suggests imagery once again. Anat seizes Mot. She cuts him. She burns him. In some reconstructions, she grinds him and scatters him like grain. Even if the exact sequence varies due to damaged tablets, the symbolic pattern is unmistakable. She does not reason with death. She dismantles it. This is not a goddess of comfort. This is a goddess of intervention. The violence serves a purpose. Eventually, Baal returns. The storm resumes and rain falls. Thus, fertility is restored. Without Anat's ferocity, that restoration does not occur. Now, in the structure of myth, Baal may be the storm, but Anat is the enforcer of its return. She is not ornamental to the story. She is essential to the resolution. Now, archaeologically, her presence is not confined to myth alone. Inscriptions and cultic materials found in Ugarit confirms that she was actively worshipped. Kemetic or Egyptian texts mention her name, indicating a cross-cultural recognition. Later inscriptions referencing Anat Yahu suggest that her memory survived into adapted forms even beyond the collapse of Ugarit. But the Baal cycle remains her clearest portrayal. In that portrait, Anat is not the nurturing mother archetype familiar in many myth systems. She is tribal protector. She is the embodiment of loyalty carried to its extreme. Her joy in battle is not random cruelty. It reflects a worldview in which survival is fragile and threats are constant. The late Bronze Age Levant was not a stable world. City-states rose and fell. Agricultural cycles could fall. Warfare was common, and political alliances shifted. A society in that environment does not imagine divinity as passive. It imagines divinity as fiercely protective. Anat does not apologize for violence. She sanctifies it when it preserves order. This is a crucial distinction. Her brutality is not chaos. It's simply boundary enforcement. She defends Baal. She defends fertility. She defends continuity. And in that way, Anat represents a specific kind of sacred feminine power. Not romantic love, not cosmic abstraction, but embodied physical defense. Her myth forces uncomfortable questions. Can violence actually be sacred? Can destruction be restorative? Is loyalty more important than mercy in unstable societies? Now, from the authors of the Baal cycle, the answer appears to be yes. Anat's blood-soaked battlefield is not a moral failure. It is divine necessity. And that necessity restores the storm. When Baal rises again, the land breathes. Rain falls, crops grow, life resumes. The cycle continues. Anat does not claim the throne. She does not demand worship in the text climax. She recedes once balance is restored. The restraint is telling. She is not driven by conquest. She is driven by defense. Her violence has purpose, and when that purpose is fulfilled, she stands down. In comparative mythology, Anat stands apart because of the clarity of her ferocity. She is not softened. She is not reinterpreted as gentle. The tablets preserve her intense, unapologetic, and loyal. That preservation gives us a rare insight into the psychology of ancient culture. In a fragile world, survival is sacred. In a fragile world, protection may require force. Anat embodies the logic without hesitation. She is not storm, she is not fire. She is blade and blood in defense of continuity. In the Baal cycle, drought threatens civilization. Anat refuses to let drought win. And in that refusal, she becomes one of the most striking examples of the fierce, protective, feminine in ancient Near East. She is the goddess who did not accept death as final. She is the one who confronted drought with steel. She is Annette. Furfur, the demon of storms. The first sign isn't the thunder, it's the silence before that. That slow, predatory hush where the birds stop talking and the wind forgets how to breathe. Some storms arrive like weather, but others arrive like judgment. On nights like this, the clouds hang low and bruised, blue-black and heavy as soaked wool. Lightning flickers behind them like something trapped, trying to claw its way out. The sea below becomes a sheet of hammered iron, reflecting a sky that looks offended by human existence. This is when people start talking carefully, not because they've become wise, but because they can feel a presence lighting up in the sky. Sailors used to say, if the storm answers back, don't answer it twice, because there is a name inside certain storms. And once that name notices a mouth moving, it leans closer. Tonight, the horizon cracks with a thin red thread of lightning. Not white, not blue. Red, like a wound in the sky. And somewhere in that tear, something smiles. The heart in the thunder. The figure appears at the far edge of the rocks where the coast breaks into jagged edges. A silhouette too tall to be natural, too still to be alive. A stag stands where no stag should stand. Its body is black, not like fur, but like night given shape. Its antlers branch wide, twisted and sharp, like dead trees struck by lightning and forced to keep growing anyway. Each fork of bone looks like it could catch a cloud and drag it to earth. Its eyes burn red, fixed and unblinking. Not animal eyes, not hungry eyes, accusing eyes. When it steps forward, the air changes. The storm doesn't simply happen around it, the storm behaves like it belongs to it. Lightning crawls along its wings. Yes, wings. Vast and ragged, feathered like torn shadows. Sparks dance across the edge as if the sky itself were trying to crown it and failing. People who survived this sighting say things like, it didn't roar, it didn't scream. It speaks like thunder deciding to become language. And the name it carries is old enough to taste like metal. Furfur. The gift of beautiful lies. Furfur is not a demon that stalks the bedrooms or hides in the corner of a church. Furfur doesn't need candlelight or whispers. Furfur arrives with weather. His voice is the low drum of distant thunder, soft at first, like a warning offered politely. Then it deepens, and the body feels it in its bones. The words do not land on ears, they land on nerves, and Furfur offers gifts. Not crowns, not gold. Furfur offers certainty. He offers the kind of confidence people crave when their hearts are shaking. I know what they meant. I know what they want. I know what's really going on. His lies don't look like lies. They look like clarity. He can make love feel like destiny. He can make jealousy feel like prophecy. He can make fear feel like wisdom. Under Furfur's storms, two people can stare at each other and suddenly believe the worst. Not because it's true, because the storm says it's true with such conviction that truth starts sweating. And the red lightning writes a sentence across the sky. Trust the feeling, doubt the person. The storm heart. There is no reason Furfur is tied to love. Not the gentle kind, not the kind that builds homes and makes soups when someone is sick. Furfur governs the love that arrives like lightning, violent, magnetic, irrational, the kind that makes the body feel chosen, the kind that makes the mind feel irrelevant. Under Furfur's influence, Attraction becomes a weapon. Compliments become chains. Desire becomes a doorway, and the doorway opens out to cliffs. Furfur's chest glows like red coal burned through ash, pulsing with each roll of thunder. Some say the glow is the heart he stole. Others say it is the heart he never had. Either way, it beats to a rhythm of conflict. Because Furfur doesn't bring storms to the world, he brings storms to people. He is the argument that feels unavoidable, the suspicion that feels logical, the confession that arrives too late, the text message that ruins a night. And when the storm finally breaks, when someone cries, when someone shouts, when someone walks away, Furfur doesn't celebrate. He simply watches, patient as a storm, knowing something deeper. A broken heart is louder than a calm one. A loud heart attracts spirits. The rule of containment. Old grimoires warn about Furfur with a detail that sounds like superstition, until it isn't. He lies until forced to tell the truth. Not he may lie, not he sometimes lies, but he lies as a law of his being, the way fire burns and salt stings. But there is method behind that storm mouth, a triangle. Not because triangles are pretty, but because triangles are control. 3 lines, 3 limits, a shape that locks a force in the frame. Inside the triangle, Furfur's thunder becomes restrained. His red eyes sharpen with irritation. The wings twitch as if they remember freedom. Lightning still dances, but it can't strike where it wants. And this is the mythic lesson hidden behind the demonology. Some truths do not appear until chaos is cornered. People have always wanted truth from storms, from war, from heartbreak, from history, from gods. Storms don't volunteer truth. Storms must be shaped into truth. So the one who dares summon Furfur does not just summon a demon. They summon a question big enough to withstand a lie, because Furfur will test the questioner first. The questioner. Imagine the summoner as a lone figure in a black coastal ruin. Stones slick with rain, salt in the air, candle flames bending sideways in the wind like frightened tongues. The triangle is drawn on the ground, chalk and ash mixed with iron filings so it glistens faintly when the lightning flashes. The summoner's hands shake, not from fear, from the pressure of being near something that makes weather feel personal. Furfur stands inside the triangle like a statue carved from night. The antlers scrape the air. The eyes never blink. The chest glow pulses brighter as the storm thickens overhead. The summoner asks a simple thing, something very human. Tell me what they truly feel. And Furfur laughs without laughter. A low thunder roll that makes the walls tremble. Because Furfur loves the question. It's the question that ruins lives. Inside the triangle, he cannot lie outright, but he can twist the truth into something jagged. He speaks carefully, like a storm pretending to be polite. They feel what the heart feels when it is afraid to be seen. That's truth, and it's also a blade. The summoner hears and thinks, they don't love me. Another person might hear it and think, they're scared because they love me. Furfur's truth isn't safe. It's honest the way lightning is honest. The storm is revelation. This is Furfur's true dominion. Not weather, not romance, not even lies. His dominion is revelation through pressure. He brings the conditions where the mask slips. Under Furfur's storms, secrets crawl to the surface because holding them becomes exhausting. People confess because silence feels like drowning. Lovers accuse because fear needs somewhere to land. Friends betray because tension demands release. Furfur doesn't create weakness, he reveals it. He is the storm that shows that trees were already rotten. And yet, that's why some seekers chase him. Not for destruction, for clarity that doesn't negotiate. Furfur can tell the hidden name of desire. He can expose the real reason behind a decision. He can point to any soft spot in a person's soul and say, there. But every revelation has a cost. Because once a truth is seen, the old stories can't be believed again. And for many people, the old lie was comforting. But that is why Furfur is called dangerous. Not because he invents horror, but because he makes reality feel too sharp to hold barehanded. The bargain of the thunder. Furfur always offers a bargain, even when none is requested. He will say, give me your doubt and I will give you certainty. Give me your patience and I will give you passion. Give me your quiet and I will give you truth. And the storm will lean in, listening to the answer. Because Furfur feeds on the moment someone chooses intensity over peace. That choice is a doorway. When someone chooses a storm, Furfur's wings spread wider. Lightning traces red veins across the feathers. The chest glow flares like a furnace. In that moment, he looks almost divine. Not holy, but awe-inspiring. And that's the trick. Some demons don't tempt with filth. They tempt with beauty. Furfur is beautiful in the way hurricanes are beautiful from space. Terrifying symmetry. Perfect violence. He doesn't ask for souls in a theatrical way. He asks for habits. React faster. Trust the rush. Choose the burn. Say the cruel thing. And if the bargain is accepted, the storm follows home. Not outside the home, inside the mind. The calm after. Eventually, the storm passes. It always does. The clouds thin, the rain weakens, the horizon stops bleeding red. The sea settles into something that resembles forgiveness, though it never truly forgives. Furfur stands at the edge of the world a moment longer. His eyes dim slightly, like embers cooling, but they never go out. The antlers still reach like lightning frozen mid-strike. And before he leaves, he offers one final truth. Not because he is kind, but because he enjoys the sound of it. He says, people blame storms for what they have already wanted to break. Then he dissolves into mist and thunder and distance, as if he were never a creature at all, only a season of violence passing through. But the lesson remains on the rocks, written in salt and silence. Some forces cannot be defeated by strength. They can only be contained. And the storm demon's name becomes a warning told in half whispers. When the sky feels like it is listening, when the air tastes like metal, when the heart starts craving chaos and calling it fate, that isn't destiny. That is Furfur walking closer. The Greek myth of origin, from the beginnings in chaos to the primeval gods and the titans. According to the Greek poet Hesiod's Theogony, at first only chaos existed, and chaos is the term given to the dark chasm that gave rise to the fundamental forces or primordial gods, such as earth, sky, and darkness. And thus, the mold of the universe was fashioned from these gods. Chaos manifested its children in spontaneous birth, and these were Gaia, who was earth, Eros, who was sexual love, Tartarus, who was the underworld, Erebus, who was darkness, and Nyx, who was night. Gaia was the primordial goddess responsible for manifesting the entire physical world, including the land, the flora, and the fauna, the sea, and the sky. Ether, or brightness, and Humera, or day, emerged from the union of Erebus and Nyx, thus darkness creating light. Uranus and Gaia were parents to 12 Titans, who were very powerful deities. There were 3 Cyclopses, one-eyed giants, and 3 ferocious hundred-handed giants, known as the Hundred-Handers. Night gave birth to doom, death, strife, sleep, and the goddess of retribution, among many others. The Titans. The powerful Titans were a mighty race that held dominion over the cosmos during the time of the Golden Age. These gods were the first generation of Titan gods and descended from the primeval gods Uranus and Gaia. And Uranus and Gaia had given birth to 12 Titans, 6 of whom were males and 6 who were females. The males were Koios, Cronus, Crius, Hyperion, Leptus, and Oceanus. The females being Thea, Rhea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Phoebe, and Tethys. These gods were immortal giants who possessed inspiring strength and knowledge of the ancient religions, as well as many skills in magic. They were known as the Elder Gods. The Titans rise to power. Now Cronus, with his brothers and his mother, plotted to overthrow Uranus, and one day they castrated the great god and stole control of the universe away from him, and thus the second generations of Titans would be born. Because during this time, the brothers and the sisters mingled with each other and would associate with the sons and daughters of their kin. Eos, Helios, and Selene were the offspring of Hyperion and Thea. Koios and Phoebe became parents to Leto and Asteria. Oceana and Potmec were the offspring of Oceanus and Tethys. Crius consorted with his half-sister Eurybus and gave birth to Astraeus, Pallas, and Perseus. Cronus and Rheus would produce a multitude of younger gods, including Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hera, Hestia, and Demeter. And it was those who would ultimately rebel against their father Cronus, just as he had done to his father Uranus and his followers. This rebellion lasted for 10 years and was called the Titanomachy. This was what led to the defeat of the old order of Titans and led to a new order, kinged by Zeus himself. They called themselves the Olympians after Mount Olympus, where they established their home, all except for Hades, whose new dominion would be the underworld. And this set in motion a new age with a set of new gods to rule the universe. Hades, the god who never lied. Now Hades is not feared because he is cruel. He is feared because he is honest. While all the other gods bargain, seduce, disguise, deceive, Hades does none of this. He does not appear in disguise, he does not test mortals, he does not pretend to be merciful, nor does he threaten punishment to inspire obedience. He simply administers death. There is no spectacle in his realm, no fires or brimstone, no screaming choirs of the damned. The underworld is not a torture chamber. It's a bureaucracy of eternity. Souls arrive, they are processed, and they are placed where they belong. Not where they want to be, not where they hope to be, where they truly and actually belong. And Hades does not lie because lies require desire. And among all things, Hades desires nothing. He is death as an administration. Now in Greek myth, chaos is not death. It is unchanged life. It's endless ambition, endless reproduction, endless conquest. Death is the corrective mechanism that keeps existence from collapsing under its own excess. So Hades is not the enemy of life, but he is its boundary. When kings overreach, Zeus strikes them down. When heroes rage, Ares feeds on their violence. When lovers betray, it is Aphrodite who stirs more chaos. But when people die, when the end comes, Hades simply does his job. He has no judgment speeches. He has no speeches at all. He's not going to punish you with his words. He's not going to ridicule you. And he is the only god who is known to 100% keep his word. If Hades says something will happen, it happens. When Orpheus descends into the underworld to retrieve Eurydice, Hades does not trick him. He gives him a single condition. Do not look back. No hidden clauses, no divine wordplay. Orpheus fails not because Hades lies, but because humans cannot resist doubt. That was his downfall. The tragedy is not Hades' cruelty, it is Orpheus' inability to trust certainty. Hades never breaks the rules. He is the rules. Now, why the gods fear him? Now, the Olympians rule through personality. It's ego, emotion, alliances. Hades rules through finality. Zeus can be overthrown. Poseidon can be defied. Hera can be appeased. Even war can be avoided. Death cannot. Hades does not need worshippers. He does not need temples. He does not need praise. Every god eventually answers to him, although quietly. Now, Persephone is the only compromise that we see, and this is the one story people cling to as evidence of Hades' villainy, the story of his wife. This is not a story of abuse. It is a story of cosmic balance. Hades does not kidnap her in secret. He asks Zeus for permission. He follows protocol of their world and their time. The seasons change not because Hades is cruel, but because death must share time with life. Persephone becomes queen not by force, but by eating the seed, by accepting the role. And even love in the underworld is contractual. And Hades is vastly misunderstood. Humans prefer lies that feel good over truths that feel cold. They would rather believe in punishment than accept this as maintenance. Hades does not judge you. He does not care if you are famous, rich, or loved. He only ensures that nothing overstays its welcome. In a universe ruled by ego, he is the only god who operates without one. Hades is not evil. Hades is necessary. And that is why he will never be loved in the way that the others are. Because love wants exceptions, and death does not accept those. Hathor, Astarte, and Phrygia, a timeline of three goddesses. Before 3000 BCE, the world before Hathor. Long before Hathor's name appears clearly in Egyptian writing, cattle already held enormous symbolic importance throughout northeastern Africa. Predynastic Egyptian artwork contains images of cows, cow horns, celestial symbols, and powerful female figures. Some of these images resemble symbols that would later belong to Hathor. That does not prove that every prehistoric cow image represents Hathor. Egypt's early religious world contained several bovine goddesses, including Bat, whose appearance and symbolism would eventually overlap with Hathor's. What these early objects demonstrate is that Hathor did not emerge from nowhere. She developed within a culture that already associated cattle with nourishment, motherhood, wealth, the heavens, and protective feminine power. Around 2700 to 2200 BCE, Hathor takes her place. During Egypt's Old Kingdom, Hathor becomes a recognizable and increasingly important goddess. Her name is commonly interpreted as House of Horus. This could describe the sky as the divine house through which the falcon god Horus travels. It could also connect Hathor with the king, because the living pharaoh was closely associated with Horus. Hathor could be depicted as a cow, as a woman with cow ears, or as a woman wearing horns surrounding a solar disk. But she was never merely a cow goddess. Hathor became a goddess of music, dance, intoxication, sexuality, fertility, motherhood, beauty, and joy. She could protect women during childbirth and welcome people into celebration. She also possessed royal and celestial authority. Depending on the location and period, she could be described as the mother, wife, or daughter of important male gods. This flexibility was not necessarily considered a contradiction. Egyptian deities existed through overlapping local traditions, religious titles, and divine relationships. Around 2200 to 2000 BCE, Hathor welcomes the dead. As Egyptian funerary traditions developed, Hathor acquired an increasingly important place in the afterlife. She was called the Mistress of the West. The West was where the sun disappeared each evening and where many Egyptian cemeteries were constructed. Hathor could therefore appear as a goddess emerging from the western mountains to receive the deceased. This introduced a theme that will return with both Astarte and Phrygia. The goddess of sexuality and life was also connected with death. That was not an ancient contradiction. The power that brings human beings into the world can also receive them when life ends. Around 2000 BCE, the Great Lady of Dendera, by the Middle Kingdom, Hathor's cult was firmly established at Dendera, one of her most important religious centers. Priests served her. Kings dedicated objects to her. Rituals celebrated her through music, movement, and the shaking of the sistrum, a sacred rattle closely associated with her worship. Hathor was also called the Mistress of Turquoise. Egyptian expeditions traveling into the Sinai Peninsula sought valuable minerals under her protection. She became a guardian of miners, travelers, desert territories, and the precious materials brought back to Egypt. This was another side of Hathor that the simplified title, Goddess of Love, fails to capture. She governed beauty, but she was also connected with the dangerous labor and distant expeditions required to obtain beautiful things. Around 1800 to 1500 BCE, Astarte rises in the Levant. While Hathor's worship flourished in Egypt, another powerful goddess was emerging more clearly in the cultures of the ancient Levant. Her name was Astarte, or Ashtart. Astarte belonged to the religious world of Canaanites, Phoenicians, and other West Semitic peoples. Her history is related to the broader family of Near Eastern goddesses that included the Mesopotamian Ishtar and the earlier Inanna. Related does not mean identical. Astarte developed her own identities within different cities and kingdoms. She was associated with sexuality, fertility, royal power, horses, hunting, and warfare. Images identified with Astarte sometimes depict a nude female figure, emphasizing sexuality and fertility. Other traditions present her as an armed and commanding goddess. Once again, love and war occupied the same divine body. Around 1550 to 1300 BCE, Hathor and Astarte enter the same world. During Egypt's New Kingdom, Egyptian armies and political influence extended deeply into the Levant. This brought Egyptian religion into closer contact with Canaanite deities. Astarte, Anat, Reshef, Baal, and other foreign gods entered Egyptian religious life. Astarte became especially associated with horses, chariots, warfare, and the military power of the pharaoh. This is where our comparison becomes more than thematic. Hathor and Astarte were now known within the same civilization. Egyptians did not necessarily erase the distinction between them. Instead, their religious system could recognize similarities while preserving different names, origins, cults, and functions. Astarte could serve the Egyptian king as a foreign warrior goddess. Hathor remained one of Egypt's great native divine powers. They could overlap without becoming interchangeable. Around 1350 BCE, the Amarna Revolution. During the reign of Akhenaten, Egypt's established religious order came under attack. Akhenaten elevated the Aten, represented by the solar disk, while closing temples and suppressing the images and names of other gods. Images of Hathor were among those deliberately damaged. The revolution did not last. After Akhenaten's death, Egypt restored its traditional gods. Hathor returned to public worship, demonstrating that divine traditions could survive even a king's attempt to erase them. Around 1274 BCE, Astarte and the royal war machine under Ramesses II, Astarte's military identity became particularly appropriate to Egyptian royal ideology. The pharaoh's horses and chariots represented speed, control, and devastating battlefield power. Foreign warrior deities helped express Egypt's authority over territories beyond the Nile Valley. Astarte was not simply imported as a goddess of romance. She entered Egypt carrying the force of horses, chariots, and foreign war. Around 1200 to 500 BCE, Astarte crosses the Mediterranean. The collapse of several Bronze Age kingdoms transformed the eastern Mediterranean. But Astarte did not disappear. Phoenician merchants and settlers carried their languages, customs, and gods across maritime trade routes. Worship of Astarte reached Cyprus, North Africa, and settlements throughout the Mediterranean. One of her most important Western centers developed at Carthage. As Astarte moved, her identity encountered local goddesses and new religious systems. In different places, she could be compared or blended with Anat, Ishtar, Aphrodite, Tanit, and other female divinities. These identifications were never perfectly consistent. Ancient religious exchange did not operate like a clean family tree. It resembled a web of shared symbols, borrowed titles, translated names, and political relationships. Around 700 to 300 BCE, Hathor and Isis overlap. During the later centuries of Egyptian religion, Isis grew into an increasingly universal goddess. Isis absorbed or shared several qualities long associated with Hathor: divine motherhood, royal protection, the solar disk between cow horns, music, sexuality, and the nurturing of Horus. Hathor did not immediately vanish. Their cults existed together, and Egyptian worshippers could recognize both goddesses. Over time, however, Isis became more internationally successful. Her worship traveled throughout the Greek and Roman worlds, while Hathor remained more closely tied to Egypt and particular sacred centers such as Dendera. Around 500 BCE to 300 CE, Astarte becomes. Many goddesses, Greek and Roman writers often interpreted foreign gods by comparing them with their own. Astarte was commonly associated with Aphrodite and later Venus. This helped make her understandable to outsiders, but it also reduced her complexity. The warrior, royal, and political dimensions of Astarte could disappear behind the more familiar image of a goddess of sexual attraction. Astarte's name also entered biblical traditions, usually in a hostile form. Biblical authors condemned the worship of foreign goddesses, and the plural term Ashtaroth became associated with forbidden religious practices. Over later centuries, this hostility contributed to another transformation. Astarte, the ancient goddess, was increasingly confused with Astaroth, a male demon found in medieval and early modern demonology. A goddess was not merely forgotten, she was rewritten as something evil. Around 400 to 700 CE, the distant roots of Phrygia far to the north, Germanic religious traditions were developing through oral culture. The exact origins of Phrygia remain debated. Her surviving stories suggest connections with older Germanic ideas concerning fertility, prophecy, magic, sexuality, wealth, and sovereignty. Scholars also continue debating the relationship between Phrygia and Frigg. The two goddesses share certain characteristics, and their names possess related meanings. They may preserve aspects of an older divine figure, or they may have always been distinct goddesses whose traditions occasionally overlapped. The surviving evidence does not allow a final answer. Around 750 to 1050 CE, Phrygia in the Viking Age. During the Viking Age, Phrygia became one of the most important goddesses of the Norse world. Her name means lady. She belonged to the Vanir, a divine family strongly associated with fertility, prosperity, nature, and supernatural knowledge. After the war between the Vanir and the Aesir, Phrygia lived among the Aesir gods. She was connected with love, sexual desire, fertility, wealth, gold, magic, warfare, and death. Her most famous possession was Brisingan, a magnificent necklace whose meaning and origin survived through several different stories. She also possessed a falcon feather cloak that allowed its wearer to travel through the air. She rode in a chariot drawn by cats and was associated with a boar called Hildisvini. Like Hathor, Phrygia was connected with precious materials, beauty, and desire. Like Astarte, she could not be separated from warfare. Around 900 to 1000 CE, the goddess who receives the slain Norse poetry describes Phrygia as the ruler of Folkvangr, the field of the people. According to the surviving tradition,
Freyja receives half of those who fall in battle. Odin receives the other half. Modern popular culture frequently places nearly every honored Norse warrior in Valhalla. The actual mythology presents a more complicated afterlife. Freyja was not standing outside the warrior tradition. She possessed her own domain among the dead. The goddess of love was also a chooser and receiver of the slain. Around 1000 CE, Christianity gradually replaced the public worship of the Norse gods. Temples, sacred sites, rituals, and oral traditions changed or disappeared. Freyja survived in stories, place names, folklore, and cultural memory, but no single complete account of her ancient worship was preserved. Similar transformations had already overtaken Hathor and Astarte. Christianity ended the public temple traditions that had sustained their worship. Later cultural changes further separated local populations from the ancient religious systems. The goddesses survived, but primarily as memories, literary figures, archaeological discoveries, or condemned remnants of older religions. The 13th century, Freyja is written down. Much of what we know about Freyja comes from works recorded after Scandinavia had become Christian. The Poetic Edda preserves poems derived from older oral traditions. The Prose Edda, associated with the Icelandic writer Snorri Sturluson, organizes and explains many Norse myths. These texts preserve Freyja's hall, her necklace, her missing husband, her tears of gold, her magical knowledge, and the repeated attempts of giants to claim her as a bride. But these sources are not untouched transcripts of Viking Age religion. They are medieval records of older stories, written in a changed religious world. The 18th and 19th centuries, the goddesses returned European archaeology, translation, colonial collecting, and romantic art brought ancient gods back into public consciousness. Egyptian temples and inscriptions renewed interest in Hathor. Phoenician artifacts helped reconstruct Astarte's history. Translations of Norse literature returned Freyja to poetry, painting, and scholarship. This rediscovery came with distortions. Hathor could be presented as an exotic symbol of pleasure. Astarte became an allegedly mysterious Eastern goddess. Freyja was frequently transformed into a pale, delicate medieval princess. The goddesses returned, but modern societies often remade them in their own image. The 20th century, the age of the love goddess, popular mythology books classified deities through simple categories. Hathor became the Egyptian goddess of love. Astarte became the Phoenician goddess of fertility. Freyja became the Norse goddess of beauty. These descriptions were not completely wrong. They were simply much too small. They removed Hathor's relationship with kingship, foreign lands, solar violence, and death. They minimized Astarte's horses, weapons, and political authority. They obscured Freyja's magic, wealth, independence, and claim upon the battlefield dead. Three complicated divine powers were reduced to ancient versions of Valentine's Day, 1963, and after. Freyja enters Marvel's Asgard. Marvel Comics incorporated versions of numerous Norse gods into its fictional Asgard. Its treatment of Freyja has not always followed the medieval sources closely. At different times, Marvel has blended names and characteristics belonging to Freyja and Frigg. That confusion reflects a genuine scholarly question, but popular entertainment often turns uncertainty into one simplified character. Marvel helped introduce Norse mythology to enormous modern audiences. It also demonstrated how readily ancient identities can be rearranged to serve a new fictional universe. The late 20th century, religious revival Hathor, Astarte, and Freyja began returning not only as fictional characters, but as objects of active devotion. Kemetic reconstructionists sought to rebuild religious practices based on ancient Egyptian evidence. Modern heathens renewed the worship of Norse deities. Other pagan and goddess-centered traditions adopted Hathor, Astarte, and Freyja through modern rituals. These revivals do not reproduce the ancient world perfectly. That would be impossible. Modern worshippers live in different societies, speak different languages, and approach the goddesses through surviving fragments. But the return of active devotion means these figures are no longer confined to museums and mythology books. 2002 to the present, Freyja in modern games. Freyja has become especially visible in video games. She appears in Age of Mythology and Smite, while the God of War series reimagines her as a major dramatic character. The modern God of War interpretation combines Freyja with elements associated with Frigg. It presents her as a mother, queen, magician, warrior, political victim, enemy, and eventual ally. Although this is not a historically exact portrait, it restores something popular culture often removes. Freyja is allowed to be emotionally complicated, politically powerful, loving, violent, wounded, and dangerous at the same time. 2016, Hathor returns to the cinema. The film Gods of Egypt presented Hathor as a major character associated with love and the world of the dead. The film freely transformed Egyptian mythology into fantasy entertainment. Its casting and visual world generated justified criticism, especially because African deities were placed inside a heavily Europeanized version of Egypt. Yet the film also demonstrated Hathor's continuing narrative power. Thousands of years after her temples flourished, she could still appear as a goddess who moves between sexuality, divine politics, danger, and death. The 21st century, Astarte's fragmented survival Astarte appears throughout modern fantasy, games, comics, occult literature, music, and historical fiction. But her identity remains less stable than those of Hathor or Freyja. Sometimes she is represented as an ancient goddess. Sometimes she is merged with Ishtar. Sometimes she becomes another name for Aphrodite. In darker fantasy and occult works, she may be confused with the demon Astaroth. Her modern afterlife reveals how mythology can preserve a name while losing the person who originally carried it. Astarte survives everywhere and nowhere, recognizable but constantly transformed. Today, three goddesses reconstructed Hathor, Astarte, and Freyja now exist simultaneously in scholarship, religion, entertainment, art, games, and online culture. Hathor is being reclaimed as far more than a smiling cow goddess. Astarte is being separated from centuries of demonization and careless identification with other Near Eastern goddesses. Freyja is being restored as more than a beautiful Norse woman waiting to be married. None of them can be reduced to love. Hathor represents pleasure that can heal, intoxicate, protect, or become destructive. Astarte represents desire joined with royal and military power. Freyja represents love joined with magic, wealth, grief, independence, and authority over the dead. They were not one goddess traveling through three civilizations. Their histories do not form a single straight line. What connects them is something more revealing. Across different times and cultures, human beings repeatedly imagined feminine divine power as the force that creates life, inspires desire, grants authority, enters battle, practices magic, mourns what has been lost, and finally receives the dead. These goddesses did not survive because history preserved them unchanged. They survived because every new age rebuilt them, sometimes faithfully, sometimes carelessly, and sometimes almost beyond recognition. But beneath every reconstruction, the same warning remains. Never mistake the goddess of love for a harmless goddess.
when the sun forgot its joy. In the later years of Ra's reign, a quiet sorrow settled upon him. Not rage, not wrath, just weariness. The sun still rose, but it was without the same warmth. The light still reached the fields, yet it failed to stir the heart. And the entire world began to feel this. All across Kemet, the people felt something they could not name. Songs were sung correctly, but they lacked joy. Offerings were given, but done so without delight. Bread was baked, incense burned, prayers spoken, yet all of them felt thin, as though the soul had stepped back. Children laughed less, lovers touched without spark, and art lost its color. The people did not curse Ra, they mourned him. For when the sun god is sad, life continues, but meaning weakens. Ma'at still stood, but it trembled. So the gods attempted to restore him. The great Enid, powerful beings all gathered. Thoth steps forward, ibis-headed and luminous, bearing scrolls of light and number. He spoke of the perfection of creation, of racial cycles, and the elegance of stars returning to their places. He revealed the beauty of balance, the poetry of mathematics, the harmony hidden beneath all things. Ra listened. He nodded, but his eyes did not brighten. Truth alone would not lift the weight from his heart. So then Aset performed her magic. She unveiled illusions of great and amazing power, worlds folding into themselves, names spoken that bent reality itself. She showed Ra what will could accomplish. Creations reshaped, chaos subdued. Ra watched calmly, but power did not move him. He had known power for far too long. So then Sobek strode in, the crocodile god of the Nile. His scales were gleaming, muscles coiled with raw force. He wrestled the primeval waters. He shattered impossible stones. He displayed might enough to protect all worlds. The ground shook. Ra did not look away, but neither did he smile. Strength could defend existence, but it could not remind him why it mattered. And then came Hathor. In her style, she did not rush. That was not her way. She did not introduce herself. She entered simply, carrying only one item with her, the magical sistrum. And this is when the first vibration began. She shook her instrument gently, but the sound was bright and alive. It rippled through the air like sunlight on water, and the people felt it first. In the temples, back and straightened. In homes, laughter returned, softly and cautiously. The sistrum did not command, it simply invited. And in that moment, healing began, not through force, but through rhythm. And Ra lifted his head. And then Hathor danced, not wildly and not timidly. Her movements followed the pulse of creation itself, hips echoing the Nile's curve, steps tracing the eternal circuit of the sun. Each motion carried vibration, and the world responded. Flowers opened up just a bit wider. Music remembered its purpose. Desire, pure, joyful desire. Desire, pure, joyful desire, returning to the living. This was not seduction. This was remembrance. This was a look that would break the silence, because Hathor lifted her gaze. Her eyes flashed, bright, playful, and all-knowing. She smiled, not coyly, but not apologetically. She allowed her great beauty to be seen. Her body, her presence, her sexuality. Not as shame, but as life unapologetically enjoyed. She was far less restrained, and she was the ultimate in confidence. Not upright and distant, but radiant and alive. A goddess who knew she was desired, and knew that desire itself was sacred. Ra laughed, a deep, rolling sound, like thunder warmed by sunlight. The heavens brightened, and joy surged back into the world. The people again felt it instantly. Offerings became celebrations again. Songs regained warmth. Love returned to touch. Ra ruled on, not because he had to, because life was once again worth sustaining. Hathor bowed, as satisfied as always, and returned to her task in the sky, proving only that it needed her light touch, her laugh, her song, her sistrum, and the shape of her hips to bring joy back to the world.
Kemetic Gods Encyclopedia, Core Netgeru Block 8, entries 351 to 400. Amunit. Amunit is a Kemetic goddess. Her primary domain is hiddenness, and she is also associated with mystery. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Amunet. She represents concealed divine presence. Amornit. Amornit is a Kemetic goddess. Her primary domain is invisibility, and she is also associated with the Primeval state. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Rmronet. She embodies unseen beginnings. Anukit Satet. Anukit Satet is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is the Nile, and she is also associated with fertility. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Anuket Sotet. She represents river abundance. Atum Khepri. Atum Khepri is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is creation, and he is also associated with transformation. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Atum Khepri. He represents the cycle of becoming. Bastet Sekhmet. Bastet Sekhmet is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is protection, and she is also associated with destruction. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Bastet Sekhmet. She embodies dual feline power. Jebshu. Jebshu is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is earth and air. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Jebshu. He represents elemental balance. Happy Osiris. Happy Osiris is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is fertility and rebirth. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Hapi Osiris. He unites nourishment and resurrection. Horus Akti. Horus Akti is a Kemetic god. His primary domain is the horizon, and he is also associated with the sun. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Horus Akti. He represents the solar boundary. Isisitha. Isisitha is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is motherhood, and she is also associated with love. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Isis Hathor. She merges maternal and joyful power. Khonsura. Khonsura is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is time, and he is also associated with the sun. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Khonsura. He unites lunar and solar cycles. Maratra. Maratra is a Kemetic syncretic deity. Its primary domain is cosmic order. It originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Its name is pronounced Mraht Ra. It represents solar justice. Montu Ra Horikti. Montu Ra Horikti is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is war and solar power. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Montu Ra Horakti. He embodies aggressive sunlight. Nithra. Nithra is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is creation, and she is also associated with the sun. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Neet Ra. She merges primordial craft and light. Nephthys Osiris. Nephthys Osiris is a Kemetic syncretic deity. Its primary domain is death and protection. It originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Its name is pronounced Nephthys Osiris. It represents funerary guardianship. Nunra. Nunra is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is creation from chaos. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Nun Ra. He represents light emerging from waters. Osiris Kentiamentiu. Osiris Kentiamentiu is a Kemetic god. His primary domain is the afterlife. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Osiris Kenti Armentio. He rules the western dead. Patara. Patara is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is creation, and he is also associated with the sun. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Ta-Ra. He merges thought and illumination. Ra Osiris. Ra Osiris is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is rebirth. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Ra Osiris. He unites daylight and resurrection. Sekhmet-Ra. Sekhmet-Ra is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is destruction, and she is also associated with the sun. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Sekhmet-Ra. She represents solar wrath. Sobek Horus. Sobek Horus is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is strength, and he is also associated with kingship. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Sobek Horus. He merges ferocity and rule. Tatanan Patar. Tatanan Patar is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is creation and emergence. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Tartanen Ta. He represents earth rising into form. Thothmarat. Thothmarat is a Kemetic syncretic deity. Its primary domain is wisdom and truth. It originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Its name is pronounced Thoth Mraht. It unites intellect and order. Wadjetra. Wadjetra is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is protection, and she is also associated with the sun. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Wadjet Ra. She guards solar sovereignty. Wepwarit Osiris. Wepwarit Osiris is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is guidance through death. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Wepwawet Osiris. He opens the way to the afterlife. Wurit Hekaura. Wurit Hekaura is a Kemetic syncretic goddess. Her primary domain is magic and royal power. She originates from Kemet in the ancient era. Her name is pronounced Wayret Hekau Ra. She embodies sovereign enchantment. Zehutira. Zehutira is a Kemetic syncretic god. His primary domain is wisdom and the sun. He originates from Kemet in the ancient era. His name is pronounced Zehuti Ra. He merges knowledge and illumination. This marks the end of the Kemetic Gods Encyclopedia. Thank you for your support.
Catrina. When death learned to smile. Before she wore flowers, before she became a face painted on the living, before her image danced through festivals and altars, there was one truth no one wanted to face. Death came for everyone. Kings and laborers, the adorned and the forgotten, those wrapped in silk and those wrapped only in earth. But the living feared death so deeply that they pretended it belonged only to the poor, the sick, the unseen. And so she appeared, not a monster, not a demon, but as a woman. La Catrina stood tall, bare-boned and beautifully dressed, wearing the elegance the living believed could save them. Her skull smiled beneath the fine hats and flowers, because no amount of gold could buy exception. She did not speak at first. She did not need to. Her presence alone was a lesson. She walked among the living during the days of remembrance, when the veil thinned and the dead were invited home. Children laughed at her image. Families placed candles and bread before her likeness. Music followed in her steps. And slowly, fear loosened its grip. La Catrina taught them something sacred. Death is not the interruption of life. It is the continuation of relationship. She carries no scythe. She demands no worship. She asks only to be remembered. Her flowers bloom in cemeteries because memory feeds the dead. Her painted eyes gaze gently because love does not end with breath. When names are spoken, when stories are retold, when laughter rises beyond grief, the dead rise again. Not in flesh, but in presence. La Catrina stands at the center of this exchange, not as a ruler, but as a hostess. She welcomes the ancestors. She reminds the living to eat, to drink, to dance, to live fully while breath still remains. Her smile is not mockery, it is mercy. She tells the living, do not hide from death. Do not rush past it in silence. Sit with it, decorate it, speak it, because when death is acknowledged, life becomes richer. And when the final breath comes, La Catrina will not arrive as a stranger. She will already be known, already honored, already smiling. Mara, the Lord of Obstruction. Whenever a human attempts to transform, there is an obstruction that appears before them. Before they can actually reach clarity, this obstruction shows its face. And this obstruction had a name, Mara. He was not born of flame, he was born of hesitation. Whenever a being reached beyond comfort, whenever someone questioned the script of their life, whenever consciousness trembled at the edge of expansion, Mara stirred. He was not hatred, he was gravity. Mara ruled no visible kingdom, no throne carved in stone, no armies marching through cities. His domain was subtle. He ruled inertia. He ruled habit. He ruled the gentle, suffocating comfort of repetition. Under his influence, beings rose, worked, desired, aged, died, and returned again. He did not need chains. Craving was chain enough. He did not need prisons. Identity was prison enough. And so, as long as beings clung to their desire, fear, and self-image, Mara's sovereignty remained unchallenged. For ages uncounted, no one truly threatened him. Many prayed, many performed rituals, many worshiped gods, but few sought to wake up from the dream entirely, until one did. The vow beneath the tree. In the forest of North India, a prince turned wanderer sat beneath a fig tree. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. He had tasted luxury. He had tasted starvation. He had walked both extremes and found neither to be sufficient. Now he made a vow. I will not rise from the seat until I see reality as it is. The earth heard him. The wind paused. The unseen realm shifted. And in his shadowed dominion, Mara felt something rupture. A crack in the foundation of sleep. If one being pierced illusion completely, others would follow. If other followed, craving would weaken. If craving weakened, Mara's rule would thin, and this could not be allowed. The Silk Strategy. Mara did not begin with violence. Violence is crude. He began with warmth. The night air softened. The ache in Siddhartha's body eased. Memories bloomed like golden flowers. Palace corridors, perfumed chambers, music and moonlight, his beautiful wife's face, his children's small hands. Not lust, not greed, relief. Mara's daughters appeared, embodiments of longing and beauty. They circled him like living poetry. You have done enough. You have suffered enough. Awaken tomorrow. Comfort is the most elegant trap, because it does not look like defeat. It looks like mercy. But Siddhartha watched. He saw desire rise. He saw it pass, like a cloud dissolving in open sky. The daughters' beauty flickered, their forms thinned, the silk net fell away, and Mara's gaze sharpened. The Iron Storm. If comfort failed, fear would rise. The sky blackened. Thunder split the heavens. From the earth surged Mara's enemies, beings of nightmare, tusked war elephants, archers whose arrows carried doubt and despair. Lightning struck the ground before the Bodhi tree. The forest roared in terror. Mara towered over chaos and declared, "This seat belongs to me." He claimed dominion over birth and death, over sorrow and longing, over the endless cycle of becoming. "Who are you," he thundered, "to step beyond my law?" Arrows flew toward Siddhartha, and as they neared him, they transformed into lotus petals. Spears became beams of light. The storm shattered against stillness. Fear cannot conquer a mind that does not cling to survival. Mara's armies dissolved into smoke. The sky cleared, silence returned. Only one weapon remained. The Blade of Doubt. Mara approached alone. No daughters this time, no army. Only him and only his presence. Calm, vast, patient. He stood before Siddhartha and asked the question that breaks empire. Who will testify that you deserve awakening? It was not shouted, it was whispered. Legitimacy, authority, validation. You sit here claiming freedom beyond gods and kings, but who bears witness to your right? The cosmos stilled, because doubt is sharper than any spear. Comfort tempts the body, fear shakes the nerves, but doubt pierces identity. If Siddhartha sought permission from the heavens, if he looked upward for approval, Mara would win. Because Mara thrives whenever awakening depends on external validation. Siddhartha did not look to the sky. He did not summon deities. He did not argue. He reached down and touched the earth. The earth remembers. His fingers pressed into the soil, simple, unadorned, and the earth answered. It trembled, not in destruction, but in recognition. The ground bore witness to lifetimes of compassion, effort, discipline, and intention. Rivers remembered. Mountains remembered. The soil remembered. No authority beyond reality itself was needed. The earth itself testified. Mara staggered, for obstruction cannot stand where direct knowledge exists. Doubt cannot survive contact with clarity. Mara did not explode. He did not burn. He simply faded, like mist dissolving into morning light. The secret truth of Mara. There is a deeper myth. Mara was never destroyed. He cannot be destroyed because he is not an enemy. He is simply a threshold. He arises when consciousness approaches breakthrough. When someone tries to end addiction, Mara appears. When someone leaves a false life, Mara appears. When someone chooses truth over comfort, Mara appears. First with warmth, then with fear, then finally with the whisper. Who do you think you are? He is obstruction. He is not punishment. He is simply there to test. For awakening that can't withstand comfort, fear, and doubt is not awakening at all. Mara in every age. In ancient forests, he used daughters and storms. In modern cities, he uses distractions. Endless noise, endless scrolling, endless comparison. Comfort as sedation. Identity as armor. He does not need armies. He has convenience. He possesses control of algorithms. He has doubt disguised as humility. And yet, the pattern never changes. Some will rise before dawn. Some will accept the whisper, but some will remain seated. Some will refuse comfort. Some will endure the fear. Some will meet doubt without asking permission. And when they do, Mara fades again. The dawn. As the first light touched the horizon, Siddhartha opened his eyes. Not as a prince anymore, not as an ascetic, but as Buddha, the truly awakened one. The Bodhi tree stood silent witness. The earth would hold the memory, and somewhere in the edge of perception, Mara watched. Not furious, not even broken, but patient, because he knows most beings will not endure the final whisper. Most will rise before sunrise. Most will choose comfort. But every so often, someone does not move. And on that night, obstruction almost ruled forever, but clarity held. And in that moment, the world itself changed. The trickster who slowed the sun. In the time before time was measured, before hours were named, before the days were counted, the sun raced across the sky. It rose too quickly, it fell too soon, and the people suffered for it. There was never enough daylight. Crops withered before they could grow. Clothes could not be finished. Fishing nets remained half woven. Children went hungry, not from lack of effort, but from lack of time. Each day slipped away like water through fingers, and so the people cried out. They spoke to the winds, they spoke to the land, they spoke to the sea, and one among them listened. His name was Maui, born between worlds, neither fully God nor fully man. Maui was known as a trickster, a breaker of rules, a challenger of what was said to be impossible. Where others bowed to the natural order, Maui questioned it. When he first heard of the people suffering, he did not pray for mercy, he chose defiance. If the sun is a problem, Maui said, then the sun must be confronted. The elders warned him, no one challenges the sun, no one binds the sky, no one survives such arrogance. Maui only smiled. He traveled deep into the forest, where ancient knowledge still sleeps in the roots and the stone. There he gathered strong fibers, flax, vines, sacred cords, and braided them together. No ordinary ropes, but ropes woven with chant, breath, and intention. Ropes meant to hold the god. When the cords were finished, Maui sharpened the bone-jaw weapon he carried, a relic of power, a symbol of his lineage. Then before dawn, while the world still whispered in the darkness, Maui climbed to the eastern edge of the earth. He hid where the sun first rises. The sun began to glow. Heat pressed against the horizon, and then the sun emerged, blazing, proud, unstoppable. As it climbed, Maui leapt from his hiding place. he cast the ropes. One wrapped around the sun's arms, another bound its body, another caught its blazing path across the sky. The sun roared, the light burned, the heat scorched the land, but the ropes held. The sun struggled, furious and unyielding, until Maui struck. Again and again. Not to destroy, but to teach. "Listen," Maui said, his voice steady against the fire. "You race too high. You leave the people in darkness. You steal their labor, their food, their lives." The sun resisted. It had never been challenged before, never been bound, never been told no. But even the sun must answer when the balance of the world is broken. At last, weakened and humble, the sun agreed. It would slow its journey. It would stretch the day. It would give the people time. Maui released the ropes. The sun rose again, but this time slowly. Day lingered. Shadows lengthened gently. Fields flourished. Work was finished. Children slept with full bellies. And time, for the first time, belonged to humanity. Maui did not stay to be praised. Tricksters never do. He vanished into story, into chant, into memory. But every long day, every lingering sunset, every moment where the light holds just a little longer, that is Maui. Not the one who feared the gods, but the one who reminded them that humanity too has needs, and sometimes even the sun must be told to slow down.
In classical mythology, Memnon, the king of Ethiopia, is consistently described and depicted as black. Ancient Greek vase paintings frequently portrayed him with black skin. Roman authors like Virgil and Ovid explicitly referred to it as dark or black-skinned. In Greek mythology, Memnon was a king of Ethiopia and the son of Tithonus and Hipparchus and Disichus, the goddess of the dawn. During the Trojan War, he brought an army to aid the Trojans. Memnon is most famous for killing Antilochus, the son of Nestor. Seeking revenge for his fallen companion, Achilles challenged Memnon to single combat. Although warned that his own death would soon follow Memnon's, Achilles accepted the challenge. In the duel, Achilles slew Memnon by driving a spear through his chest. The death of Memnon mirrors the earlier death of Hector, another defender of Troy whom Achilles killed to avenge the death of Patroclus. After Memnon's death, Zeus was moved by the grief of Eos and granted her son immortality. The story of Memnon's final battle was told in the lost epic Aethiopis, believed to have been composed during the 7th century BC. His death was later described by Quintus of Smyrna in the Post-America and by Philostratus in the Imaginings. Roman-era writer Dictys Cretensis records that Memnon arrived at Troy with a vast army of Indians and Ethiopians, numbering in the thousands and equipped with many different kinds of weapons. According to the account, the army exceeded even Priam's greatest hopes. Strabo preserves a tradition attributed to Simonides that Memnon was buried near Paltus in Syria. On the banks of the river Badas, Memnon in ancient art Memnon appears frequently in surviving Greek art. Vase paintings often depict him as a dark-skinned warrior, archer, or king. Modern catalogs have identified more than 100 surviving references to Memnon in ancient artistic and literary sources. One notable image depicts a black archer accompanied by 2 Amazons. Scholars have debated whether the figure represents Memnon himself or is an attendant associated with Memnon in the Post-America. According to Quintus of Smyrna, Memnon arrived at Troy shortly after a debate among Polydamas, Helen, and Priam concerning whether the Ethiopian king would come to the city's aid. His army was described as so large that it could not be counted. Upon arriving, Memnon was honored with a great banquet hosted by Priam. During the feast, the 2 leaders exchanged stories of their past victories. Priam declared that Memnon would become Troy's savior, but Memnon remained humble and insisted that true worth should be proven in battle rather than through boasts. Before the next day's fighting, Zeus commanded the Olympian gods not to interfere in the conflict because of the importance of Memnon's fate. In battle, Memnon killed Antilochus after Antilochus had slain Memnon's companion Aesop. Nestor attempted to challenge Memnon despite his age, but Memnon refused, believing it dishonorable to fight an elderly warrior. His respect for Nestor reflects the heroic values often associated with Achilles himself. Nestor then begged Achilles to avenge his son. both warriors entered battle wearing divine armor crafted by Hephaestus, creating another parallel between them. Memnon as an ally of Troy and Virgil. Memnon leads eastern armies from Ethiopia in support of Troy. Virgil refers to the arms of Black Memnon, emphasizing both his orcs and Lengerierity. Like Achilles and other great Hestus, Memnon and her great heroes, Memnon possessed armors were crafted for him through the intervention of his mother Eos, or weighing of souls. To form between Achilles. Before the duel, a psychostasia, or weighing of souls, to determine which hero would die. Both warriors were granted extraordinary strength and endurance so that the entire battlefield could witness their clash. Eventually Achilles struck Memnon through the heart, causing the Ethiopian army to flee. According to later traditions, the gods transformed drops of Memnon's blood into a river. His loyal followers who remained behind to honor him were changed into birds known as the Memnonides, which continued to Zeus to restore her cleanse his tomb. Eos pleaded with Zeus to restore her son to life. Although Zeus did not resurrect Memnon, he granted her the ability to behold him briefly each dawn, as she opened the gates of heaven for the rising sun. John Malalas later wrote that Memnon was king of the Indians and arrived at Troy with a fleet and great wealth, eventually assuming command over the allied forces before being killed by Achilles. The Memnon Pietà, one of the most famous artistic depictions of Memnon, shows Eos holding the body of her fallen son. This image, often called the Memnon Pietà, survives on an Attic red figure cup dated to approximately 490–480 BC. The scene portrays Eos lifting Memnon's lifeless body while mourning his death. The image emphasizes both maternal grief and heroic sacrifice. Memnon and the Ethiopians. Ancient Greek and Roman writers consistently associated Memnon with the Ethiopian. Classical definitions describe the Ethiopians as dark-skinned peoples, living far to the south. Diodorus Siculus specifically identifies Memnon as king of the Ethiopians who bordered Egypt. Although the earliest version of Memnon's story survives only in fragment, later Greek and Roman authors consistently portray him as a great Ethiopian ruler and warrior. Philostratus describes artistic representations of Memnon as a powerful black warrior whose physical strength rivaled that of Achilles. He notes that Memnon's skin was black, yet carried a reddish hue. Not all ancient traditions agreed on his origins. The Suda, a Byzantine encyclopedia, states that while Memnon commanded Ethiopian forces at Troy, he himself ruled from Susa in Asia. Parentage and origins. According to Greek myth, Memnon was the son of Eos and Tithonus. Tithonus had been carried away from Troy by Eos and taken to the far edges of the world near Oceanus. Hesiod describes Memnon as the bronze-armored king of the Ethiopians. Some traditions state that Memnon was raised by the Hess on the shores of Oceanus. Modern scholars note that ancient writers sometimes associated Memnon with both Africa and Asia, because ancient geographical concepts of Ethiopia and India were often fluid. Memnon developed a dual identity in classical literature. Roman writers, however, consistently described him as black-skinned. Following his death, Eos mourned deeply. Some traditions state that she darkened the light of the sun and called upon night to conceal her recovery of her son's body. With the aid of Hypnos and Thanatos, Memnon's remains were carried back to Ethiopia. Eos then begged Zeus to make Memnon immortal, a request that Zeus granted. The Colossi of Memnon are two enormous stone statues of Pharaoh Amenhotep III located in Luxor, Egypt. Beginning in the 1st century AD, Greek and Roman visitors identified the statues with the legendary Memnon. This association may have arisen because one of the statues faced the sunrise and produced mysterious sounds at dawn. Ancient writers such as Pliny the Elder recorded reports that one statue emitted musical tones in the morning. Travelers journeyed great distances to hear the phenomenon. Pausanias described the statue and noted that many believed it represented Memnon, who was said to have marched from Ethiopia through Egypt and onward to Susa. After an earthquake in 27 BC damaged one of the statues, the sounds reportedly became even more pronounced. Roman Emperor Hadrian and Empress Sabina famously visited the site Sisti hoping to hear the statue's voice. Later repairs are said to have silenced the phenomenon permanently. Legacy Memnon stands among the greatest heroes of the Trojan War tradition. Though ultimately defeated by Achilles, he was remembered as a noble king, a mighty warrior, and a heroic defender of Troy. Ancient literature, art, and later historical traditions preserved his image as the dark-skinned king of Ethiopia, beloved son of Eos, and one of the last great champions to challenge Achilles before the hero's own death.
Rain gods of the world. A Myth Archives reading. Rain has always meant survival. Before irrigation canals. Before industrial farming. Before written scripture. Rain determined whether a village lived or starved. Across continents and across millennia, cultures did not treat rain as random. They treated it as personal. They gave it a name, a temperament, a will. This is a survey of the rain gods of the world. The first storm kings in ancient Mesopotamia, one of the earliest recorded rain deities, was Ishkor. He was a storm god of Sumer. He carried thunder. He brought the life-giving waters that fed the Tigris and Euphrates basin. Later, in Akkadian and Babylonian traditions, he was known as Adad. The name changed. The storms did not. In Anatolia and Hurrian lands, the storm authority was Teshub. He stood upon mountains. He wielded lightning. He governed both destruction and renewal. To the west, in Canaan, Baal-Hadad rose as a central agricultural power. He defeated Mot, the force of drought and death. His victories were seasonal. His battles were cycles. Further east, in the Vedic tradition of ancient India, Indra became the archetype of the storm warrior. He slew the serpent Vritra. From the body of the serpent, the rivers were released. Rain was not gentle. Rain was liberated. Alongside Indra was Parjanya, a more focused embodiment of rainfall itself. He was invoked directly for agricultural fertility. Vayuna, keeper of cosmic order, governed the waters more broadly, celestial, oceanic, and atmospheric. In Greece, Zeus carried many titles. As Zeus Ombrios, he was the rainbringer. Lightning was his signature. But rain was his mercy. In Rome, Jupiter Pluvius held the same authority. When drought threatened the state, rituals were performed in his name. In the Norse world, Thor was not merely a thunder god. He was protector of crops and fields. His hammer struck giants and shook rain from the sky. Among the Slavs, Perun ruled the oak and the storm. His lightning was a divine weapon. His rain sustained the land. Across Europe and Western Asia, the pattern repeats. The Storm King is a warrior. Rain is power. Rain as dragon and serpent in China, rain was not only thunder. It was dragon. The Dragon Kings, known as Long Wang, ruled the four seas. Each direction had a sovereign. Each sovereign governed rainfall over their region. When drought struck, emperors performed rituals to petition the dragons. Yusha served as an official rain deity within the celestial bureaucracy. Rain was organized, scheduled, administered. In Japan, Kurokami was a dragon spirit of rain. Raijin, the thunder god, beat drums across the sky. Storms were musical. Rain was percussion. In Mesoamerica, the Maya invoked Chark. He wielded a lightning axe. With it, he split the clouds open. The Aztec honored Tlaloc. He resided in mountain caves and high places. Rain was believed to originate from sacred elevations. His favor meant harvest. His anger meant famine. The Zapotec worshipped Cosijo, a lightning and rain deity with serpent imagery. Serpents and rain were often linked. Both moved across the land in flowing patterns. In Vedic myth, Indra's opponent Vritra was also a serpent. The serpent holds the waters. The storm god releases them. Across cultures, rain is either dragon or dragon slayer. Rain mothers and fertility bearers. Not all rain deities were warriors. Some were mothers. In ancient Egypt, Tefnut embodied moisture itself. She was part of the creation cycle. Without her, dryness prevailed. In Zulu tradition, Mbaba Mwana Warisa was a goddess of rain, agriculture, and the rainbow. Rain was beauty. Rain was color. In Akan cosmology, Asace Yer represented the earth. Rain fertilized her body. Together, sky and soil formed partnership. Among the Maya, Chak Shell was associated with storms and destructive floods. Rain nourishes, but it also overwhelms. In Polynesian tradition, Tawera Matia was lord of winds and storms. His anger shaped the atmosphere. In Hawaii, Lono governed rain and fertility during the Makahiki season. Rain was tied to peace cycles and harvest celebration. These traditions remind us, rain is not only force. Rain is intimacy between sky and earth. Sky fathers and high gods. Some cultures did not separate rain from the highest deity. Among the Kikuyu of Kenya, Nai was a supreme sky god associated with Mount Kenya. Rain descended from sacred elevation. In Finnish mythology, Ukko ruled thunder and seasonal rains. He was invoked to protect crops and ensure harvest. Among the Navajo, Tunainilii was a rain god with trickster qualities. Rain was unpredictable. Among the Lakota, Wakinian represented thunder beings. They were not singular gods, but powerful spirits. Rain was communal in the sky world. In Etruscan belief, Aplu carried storm authority that influenced later Roman interpretations. In Japan, Susanoo governed storms and sea. His temperament reflected nature's volatility. In Mesopotamia, Enlil, lord of wind, commanded atmospheric force. Wind precedes rain. Breath precedes storm. Across continents, the pattern expands. Sometimes rain belongs to a specialized deity. Sometimes it belongs to the sky itself. The agricultural equation. Agrarian societies develop rain theology quickly. Without rain, there is no grain. Without grain, there is no state. This is why rain gods often rise in river valley civilizations. Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, Mesoamerica. Rain is political. Rulers often aligned themselves with rain deities. To control narrative was to claim divine favor. If rain came, the king was blessed. If drought came, someone had failed. Rain gods are rarely minor figures. They sit near the top of pantheons. Because rain determines survival. Patterns across cultures, across traditions, certain themes repeat. Rain is released from restraint. Rain is tied to serpents or dragons. Rain is accompanied by thunder. Rain follows divine conflict. Rain ensures fertility. Rain reflects divine mood. The storm king. The rain dragon. The fertility mother. The sky father. The trickster wind. Different cultures. Similar archetypes. Closing reflection. Rain falls without language. But humanity never experienced it silently. They interpreted it. They ritualized it. They negotiated with it. They sang to it. Across thousands of years, rain has been seen as a weapon, a gift, a test, a covenant. To study rain gods is to study how humanity understood dependency. We do not command the sky, but we have always tried to speak to it. And in that conversation, the rain answers.
Amoki, the guardian at the threshold. When the last breath leaves the body, there is no scream, no fire, no sudden darkness. There is confusion. The world does not end, it simply loosens. The ground no longer feels solid. The sky no longer answers. Voices echo without mouths. This is the space between, and it is here that Amoke waits. She does not chase the dead. She does not summon them. She stands at the place all paths must cross, where the living world thins and the ancestral realm begins to breathe. Amoke is not hidden. She does not need to be. Those who arrive feel her before they see her. A pressure, a stillness, a certainty that movement without permission is no longer possible. She is the guardian of the threshold, the keeper of passage, the one who decides whether a soul may continue forward or must turn back. In the time before her, souls wandered. They drifted into forests. They clung to homes. They followed bloodlines without rest. The living could not sleep, and the dead could not settle. So order was required. Not punishment and not fear, but order. Amoke was appointed not to rule the dead, but to protect the boundary. She carried no weapons, because none is ever needed. Her power is not force, simply permission. She speaks few words. She does not ask who you were in life. She does not care for titles, wealth, or praise. She listens for balance. She listens for truth. For whether your spirit understands that it has ended one journey and must begin another. Those who resist, who cling to breath, to flesh, to unfinished hunger, feel the weight of her gaze. Not anger, but correction. They are guided back, returned to dreams, sent to resolve what was left undone. Now those who accept, they feel something entirely different. Relief. Their fear loosens. Their memories soften. The noise of the living world fades. Amoke opens the way. Rivers appear, paths unfold, voices of the ancestors rise, not calling, but welcoming. This is not judgment. This is transition. Amoke does not decide who is good or evil. She decides who is ready. Through her, death becomes sacred. Through her, chaos is guided, not destroyed. Through her, the worlds remain separate and whole. And every soul, whether king or child, must one day stand before her. Not to beg, not to fight, but to listen. Because when Amoke steps aside, the ancestors are waiting. And when she does not, it is because the story is not yet finished. The myth of Arachne. Arachne is born in the land of Lydia, the daughter of a humble dyer of wool. She does not come from nobility. She is not taught by priests or temples. But what she has is skill. From a young age, her hands move with quiet certainty. Threads bend to her will. Colors settle into patterns no one has ever seen before. Her weaving is not merely decorative. It's alive with detail, balance, and precision. People travel from distant towns just to watch her work. At first, they say her talent must be a gift from the goddess Athena, who is the patron of wisdom and weaving. But over time, as Arachne's reputation grows, people begin to speak differently about her. They say her skill does not resemble a gift. They say it surpasses the goddess herself. Arachne hears the rumors and does not deny them. She says plainly that she owes Athena nothing. She says if the goddess wishes to test her, she is welcome to do so. And Athena hears this. She comes to Arachne not in glory, but disguised as an old woman, leaning heavily on an old weathered staff. Her voice is calm, almost kind. She warns Arachne to show humility, to respect the gods, to withdraw her challenge. But Arachne refuses. She says skill should stand on its own. She says truth does not bow to authority. And then in that moment, the disguise falls away. Athena reveals herself, radiant and severe, and the true contest now begins. Two looms are set side by side. Athena weaves first. Her tapestry is perfect in structure and form. It shows the gods in all their splendor, majestic, orderly, unchallenged. Mortals who defy them are punished. And the message is clear. Power rules, and rebellion leads only to ruin. And then Arachne weaves. Her hands move swiftly, confidently, without any hesitation. And her tapestry tells a different story. She shows the gods as they truly behave. Zeus disguising himself to deceive mortal women. Gods abusing power, betraying trust, breaking the very rules they demand others obey. There is no distortion in this, no exaggeration, only accuracy. When the tapestries are finished, the difference is unmistakable. Athena's work is truly flawless, but Arachne's is flawless as well. But Arachne's tells a truth that Athena cannot tolerate. The goddess inspects the weaving closely, looking for an error, but of course she would find none. And in that moment, Athena understands that she is not lost because of weakness, but because of honesty. Enraged, she tears Arachne's tapestry apart. She strikes the girl, destroying the work that exposed the gods. In despair, Arachne collapses. In some tellings, she attempts to end her life, unable to bear the loss of her art and her dignity. But Athena would stop her, not out of mercy, but to deliver judgment. She transforms Arachne into a spider. Her body shrinks, her limbs twist, her fingers become legs, her loom becomes instinct. And finally, the goddess speaks again, in her true form. Arachne will weave forever, but she will never again be praised. Her work will be hidden in corners and shadows. Her name will be remembered, but her voice will be gone. And so the spider weaves, thread after thread, pattern after pattern, silent, persistent, unacknowledged. The gods retain their authority, and the truth remains, but small, overlooked, and easy to dismiss. And the world moves on. There was a time when light didn't have a voice. There was a time where the sky itself did not stretch across existence. But there still was a presence, not empty and not silent, but waiting. She is not fear of the darkness. She is the darkness that allows everything else to exist. This is Nyx. Nyx is not introduced into the world. She was already there before the world actually began. Born from chaos, she is among the first realities to take form. Not shaped, not chosen, and not crowned. She simply is. And this is what makes her very different from other gods like Zeus or Athena. They rule within the system. Nyx exists before the system had rules. Now, Nyx is not just night, like sunset or sunrise. She is the space where sight fails, the moment before awareness, the unseen layer behind reality. She is not darkness as absence, she is darkness as presence. The kind that wraps around you, not to destroy you, but to remind you how small your light really is. She is the mother of the inevitable. Nyx does not wage war. She does not seek worship. She does not intervene. She creates. And what she creates tells you everything about her nature. She creates sleep, death, fate, doom, and retribution. Through figures like Hypnos and Thanatos, Nyx became the origin of the forces that no god, no king, and no mortal can ever escape. She does not power the axe, she is the power that guarantees. There was a moment where even the great Zeus hesitated. Quietly, but very revealing. The king of the gods, Zeus, rises in anger, ready to strike. But his target hides within Nyx. And Zeus stops. No thunder, no punishment, no defiance. Because even he understands something very fundamental. You don't fight the night, you wait for it to pass. Nyx is the archetype of infinite depth. She represents the subconscious mind, the unseen forces shaping reality, the emotional and psychological unknown. She is the place where dreams are born, fears take shape, and ideas begin than more than just words. Every creation starts in her, not in light, but in the dark where form has not yet decided what it will become. Nyx teaches a truth that systems try to avoid. Light is not dominant. Light is temporary. Darkness is always there first and will always be there after. She is not the enemy of creation, she is its foundation. When the world goes quiet, when the noise fades, when you are left alone with your thoughts, that is not emptiness. That is Nyx. Not watching, not judging, just present. And in that presence, Everything that you thought you were begins to take shape. Odin, god of sacrifice, vision, and costly awareness. Odin is not the strongest of the gods. He is not the most beloved. He is not even the most just. But Odin is the god who understands. And in Norse mythology, understanding is never free. Now, Odin is known by more names than any god in the Norse world. He is Allfather, not because he rules gently, but because he sees broadly. He is Har, the High One, Grimnir, the Masked One, Wanderer, One-Eyed, Lord of the Gallows, God of Ruins. Each name reflects a different angle of perception. Odin does not remain fixed in one identity because awareness itself is unstable. To see more, one must become more. And sometimes one must disappear. What Odin governs. Odin does not govern war in the way Thor governs battle. He does not govern law like Tyr. He does not govern fertility or prosperity. Odin governs the pursuit of knowledge, especially knowledge that destabilizes certainty. He governs vision gained through loss, wisdom purchased with suffering, prophecy without control, magic that violates social norms. In Norse cosmology, the universe is not orderly in the way that Kemet imagines it. It is doomed, it is cynical and violent. Odin's role is not to stop that fate, it is to see it clearly. One of Odin's defining myths is the sacrifice of his eye at Mirmir's well. At the well, which is the source of knowledge, Odin is offered knowledge for a price. Not prayer, not devotion, but a body part. He gives up the eye to drink from the well. This is not symbolic modesty. This is a declaration. Awareness requires permanent loss. Odin does not gain vision by becoming whole. He gains it by becoming incomplete. From that moment on, Odin sees more than others, but never sees fully again. And this is the trade. Hanging from Yggdrasil. If the eye establishes cost, Yggdrasil establishes method. Odin hangs himself from the world tree for 9 nights. No food, no water, pierced by his own spirit. He is not sacrificed to someone. He sacrifices himself to himself. This is not martyrdom, it is initiation. Through suffering, Odin perceives the ruins, symbols that encode reality itself. Language not as communication, but as structure. Here, Odin briefly overlaps with Thoth. Where Thoth records structure, Odin bleeds into it. Now, these ruins are not letters. These are not decorations. These are principles. Each ruin is a function of reality, a force that can shape events if understood correctly. Odin does not invent them, he uncovers them. And once uncovered, they cannot be forgotten. This is the reoccurring theme of Odin's awareness. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Odin practices storiy, a form of magic associated with fate, perception, and manipulation of outcomes. In Norse society, storiy is considered unmanly, taboo, dangerous. Odin practices it anyway, and this is critical. Odin is willing to violate social norms, gender roles, and divine expectations for the sake of understanding. Awareness does not respect comfort. And Odin in Ragnarok figures into all of this. Perhaps the most important aspect of Odin's cosmic awareness is this. He knows Ragnarok is coming. He knows the gods will fall. He knows the world will burn. He knows he will be devoured by Fenrir, and he cannot stop it. This is not failure. This is clarity. Odin's awareness is not about control. It's about comprehension without illusion. He prepares not to prevent the end, but ensures something survives. But Odin is not a savior. He does not save the world. He gathers knowledge, he gathers warriors, he gathers stories. Valhalla is not a paradise. It is a preparation. Odin's role is to make sure the universe understands itself as it ends. This is a different kind of responsibility. Odin's archetype echoes far beyond Scandinavia. He resembles wandering sages, one-eyed seers, trickster initiates, sacrificial knowledge figures. In modern psychology, he appears as the archetype of the knowledge seeker who pays too much of a price. In literature, he is a mentor who knows the cost but does not soften. In modern terms, Odin represents the consciousness that chooses awareness even when it hurts. He is the voice that says, you can know, but it will change you. You can see, but you will lose comfort. You can understand, but you cannot go back. He is not moral reassurance. He is consequence. Odin is not a god of victory. He is the god of vision earned through sacrifice. He stands at the center of the universe that cannot be saved, only understood. And he chooses understanding anyway. That is his power, not through domination, not through force, but the willingness to see clearly, even when the truth demands blood. Odin and the eye that would not look away. Now, before the end of all things had a name, before the gods spoke openly about Ragnarok, there was an unease that followed Odin like a shadow. Not fear. Fear implies ignorance. This was something much worse. This was suspicion. Now, Odin ruled as king of the Aesir, seated high in Asgard on the throne, surrounded by warriors, by gods, and by poets who praised his name. But praise rang hollow to him, because Odin knew a truth few dared to admit. A throne does not grant understanding. Power does not grant clarity, and gods, like men, can rule blindly. At night, when the halls grew quiet, Odin would sit in his throne. Hugin and Munin, thought and memories, his crows would return from their flights. They would perch on his shoulders and whisper what they had seen in the 9 realms. Wars brewing, oaths breaking, fates tightening like knots, and each whisper confirmed what Odin already suspected, that something was coming, and worse, that it was already in motion. So Odin turned his attention not outward, but downward, to the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree whose branches held the heavens, and whose roots drank from the places that even gods avoided. One root fed Mimir's well, a well not of water alone, but of memory, of truth, of things remembered by the world itself. It was said that the well remembered every mistake ever made, and every consequence yet to come. And it was guarded by Mimir, not a warrior, not a tyrant, but a keeper, because wisdom does not need force, only patience. Odin traveled alone, no army, no banners, no ceremony, a king who feared witness. When he reached the well, he did not admire it, he did not marvel, he already knew what it was. He asked for a drink. Mimir looked at him, not with reverence, but with recognition, as if he had been waiting. And the price was spoken plainly. One of your eyes. Not your blood, not your crown, not your life. Your eye, the thing with which you interpret the world. And the silence that followed was heavy, because Odin understood the meaning immediately. This was not payment for knowledge, this was proof of intent. To drink from the well was to accept that you would never see the world the same way again. And Odin could have turned back. He would still be king, he would still be worshipped, he would still be feared. Ignorance would have protected him. But Odin did not come for comfort, he came for truth. And truth always takes something with it. So Odin reached up and tore the eye from its socket. No miracle softened the act, no divine numbness dulled the pain. This was not a test. It was mutilation, a god breaking himself on purpose. Blood fell into the well, followed by the eye itself. which sank slowly as if the well were swallowing a memory. Only then did Mimir allow him to drink, and what Odin gained was not peace. He saw the ruins, not the symbols, but as forces that demanded sacrifice to Weld. He saw fate, not as a suggestion, but as a structure that was already built. He saw Ragnarok, not as a distant threat, but as a certainty moving steadily towards him. And worst of all, he understood that knowledge does not grant control. It only removes denial. When Odin rose from the well, he was one-eyed, not wounded, not diminished, but exposed. From that day forward, Odin would never rest. He wandered the realms disguised as an old man, testing warriors, tempting kings, destroying those who proved unworthy. Not out of cruelty, but out of desperation, because Odin knew something that the others did not, that war was coming whether they wanted it or not. Valhalla was not a reward, it was a recruitment center. In Herja were not heroes, they were resources. And Odin gathered them obsessively, because wisdom had shown him the end but offered no way out of it. This was the price that Odin paid, not the loss of an eye, but the loss of illusion. He could see the truth now, and it did not care that he was God. His missing eye did not make him wiser, not the way that poets imagine. It made him haunted, because once you see the shape of fate, you can't argue with it. You cannot pray it away, you cannot rule it into submission. You can only prepare. And so Odin ruled with authority in one hand and inevitability in the other. One eye looking forward, one eye forever staring up from the depths of the well. A reminder to gods and men alike that wisdom is not enlightenment, it is endurance. And knowledge is not safe, it only ensures that when it comes, you will recognize what you saw. Packhead, the hunter of the desert, the lioness of the cliffs. There are gods that live in temples with crowds and incense and choirs. And then there are gods who live where human voices don't carry. Packhead is not a goddess of the marketplace. She is not a goddess of polite prayer. Packhead is a lion goddess in the margins, the heat haze between dunes, the shadow tucked under cliff, the quiet tension in the spine that tells a hunter something is watching you back. Some deities come from stories. Packhead comes from presence. And presence is older than any story ever written down. She is known as she who scratches, she who rips, or she who hunts. And she belongs in the edge of Kemet, the place where the Nile can't soften. You can see her in the wide desert bowl under the sun, bleached pale blue, almost white. The sun is so blunt, it doesn't feel like light, it feels like weight. The sand isn't one color. It is layered, gold, amber, clay red, bone dust. And there are stone outcroppings like broken teeth. Cliff faces that look carved by time and sandstone, and old arguments between wind and rock. And somewhere in that cliff wall, cut into the stone itself, there is a place for her. A hollow that is not a cave, not a home, not a tomb. A mouth in the rock where a lion goddess can be fed with offerings and fear and respect. Packhead is a cliff goddess, a goddess you approach the way you approach a lion. Not loud, not fast, not careless. Because if she is present, the desert becomes a hunting ground. Packhead is often associated as being a lioness. Now don't imagine an animal, imagine a divinity wearing animal truth. She is tall in the way that statues are tall, not in height but in authority, the kind of authority that makes the air feel organized around her. Her face is a lioness, clean, calm eyes, a muzzle that suggests restraint. Not the grin of a predator playing with prey, more like the stillness of a predator that doesn't need to prove anything. Her skin is a shade of sun-burnished bronze or deep umber, like the earth after heat. Not polished, not porcelain, more like living stone warmed by the daylight. Gold catches her cuffs, collar, the geometry of ancient craft. But this isn't decoration, it reads as rank. And her eyes, they are measuring instruments. They measure distance, they measure threat, they measure truth. When she turns her gaze on someone, it doesn't feel like being looked at. It feels like being judged by the wild itself. Pakhet is a lion goddess tied to hunting and war, but not in the loud, marching drums way. Her war is precision. Her hunting is law. She is the goddess of the moment before impact, the silence before claws, the breath held, the twitch of muscle under skin. If Sekhmet is the blaze, Pakhet is the ember that waits. If Bastet is the hearth cat, the domestic guardian, Pakhet is the wildcat that never belonged in your home in the first place. Pakhet moves between those polarities like a blade sliding between ribs, soft and inevitable. She is the lioness outside the city order, the divine reminder that civilization is a thin robe worn over the animal truth. She is the goddess who hunts at twilight. Pakhet is strongest in the hours that don't belong to anyone, not to noon. Noon is too obvious. Not to midnight. Midnight is too deep. Pakhet belongs to twilight, where the desert stops shining and starts listening. At that hour, the horizon bruises purple and burnt orange. The sand cools fast. The air changes texture, like silk turning into smoke. You can imagine her then, a silhouette near the cliff edge, a goddess shaped like a lioness, gold catching the last light like fireflies trapped in metal. Her feet silent on stone, not running, not sneaking, but existing with the confidence of a creature that has never been prey. This is the Pakhet myth, the lioness who teaches the world what it feels like to be hunted by the sacred. Pakhet's worship is associated with places like Ben Hassan, cliffside zones where tombs and sanctuaries cut in the rock made from the landscape to feel like a library for the dead. And that matters, because a cliff temple isn't a normal temple. A temple in a city says the gods are here with you. A temple in a cliff says the gods are here, you just happen to be allowed near them. The rock is older than your lineage. The desert doesn't care about your name. And the goddess of the cliff is the same way. She is not impressed, she's not bribed, she's not moved by performance. Approaching Pakhet is like approaching the ancient truth. You don't negotiate, you align or you get corrected. Pakhet's energy is quiet dominance. She is not screaming wrath, she is not chaos. She is controlled force, the kind of force that doesn't waste motion, the kind of force that doesn't argue. In mythic reading, Pakhet shows up in a person's life when someone needs to stop begging and start moving with authority. Someone is surrounded by predators and has to become one. Someone is learning that softness without boundaries becomes a meal. Pakhet doesn't teach to be cruel, she teaches to be real. She teaches the law of the hunt, which is not evil, it is honest. The desert doesn't apologize for being dry. The lioness doesn't apologize for eating. Pakhet is that level of truth. The truth that makes people uncomfortable because it doesn't care how anyone feels about it. Her name is often connected to scratching, and this is the perfect symbolism. A scratch isn't always lethal. A scratch is a message. A scratch says, I could have ended you. I chose education. Pakhet's scratch is initiation. It marks a person. It can be literal, claws, blood, pain, or spiritual, ego cut, illusions torn, comfort shredded. Pakhet doesn't just kill prey, she kills falsehood. And if someone is living in a lie, Pakhet is not the goddess that gently guides them out of it. She is the goddess that rips away the curtain. Pakhet in the lioness continuum. It had multiple lion-headed goddesses because lion energy had multiple modes. Pakhet is not redundant. She is specialized. She is the lioness of the cliffs and the borderlands. hunting as sacred law, controlled violence, twilight vigilance, the wild feminine that doesn't seek approval. If Sekhmet is divine punishment, Pakhet is divine pursuit. And pursuit is scarier. Punishment ends. Pursuit keeps coming. Papa Legba, the keeper of every road. There is a place where every journey changes. It may appear as a narrow road dividing beneath an ancient tree. It may be a doorway standing between one room and another. It may be the moment before a decision, before the life you've always known separates from the life you may yet live. Every person eventually arrives here. Some reach it with confidence. Some arrive frightened and uncertain. Others do not realize they're standing at crossroads until the road behind them has already disappeared. And somewhere near the crossing, an old man waits. His clothing is worn from travel. His body bends beneath the weight of years. One hand rests upon a cane while the other carries the invisible keys to doors